Welcome back to Face the Nation. We're joined now by the director of the National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett. Good to have you back.
It's great to be back.
So people are holiday shopping. They're aware of prices. The president said this week prices are coming down tremendously. The latest data, though, from the Consumer Price Index, up 3% year over year. Personal Consumption Index is up 2.8% year over year. What data is he looking at? What's your benchmark?
Right. Well, one of the things that, if you saw his presentation in Pennsylvania, is he put up a bunch of charts, which he loves to do, where he went through the individual items that have we've already sort of made a bunch of progress on. And so, for example, under Joe Biden, prescription drugs were up 9%. So far this year, they're down 0.6%. Gasoline is way down. It was like the highest ever under Biden,
Eggs,
and so on.
talking about eggs.
Yeah, he was talking about eggs. And so I think the way to think about inflation, of course, is that there are like micro effects, like the time that we had the avian flu affecting drug prices, and then macro effects, which is runaway spending, big deficits, and then an accommodative Fed policy. And I think
now
that
tariffs adding to some price increases according to the Fed chair.
Well, I think that the tariff evidence is mixed, but the point is that we've got deficit going way down. So right now it's looking like the deficit for this year will be $600 billion lower than it was last year. That really helps lower inflation. We've got the trade deficit cut in half from last year. And so all of these things are things that should continue to move us towards the Fed target of 2%.
Companies aren't necessarily going to bring items down, though, in terms of pricing, right? I mean, the president told the Wall Street Journal he didn't know when all of this money, quote, is going to kick in. I think he was talking to business investment and tariffs and help voters. All I can do is my job. When do you anticipate voters will feel this positive impact?
Right. Well, it's definitely the case that, and you guys have covered a lot, that consumer sentiment right now is lower than anyone would like. But, we find that very often happens during a government shutdown when everybody's really upset.
The last administration called that the vibe session, right?
No, but
the data is good, but people feel bad.
Yeah, but what's going to happen is, what's going to happen? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that people are going to see the high growth. Growth is 4%. Income growth is up about $1,200 this year. People look at their wallets and see they're doing better, which is why we had the biggest Black Friday ever, and so on. And so I think that
but that's more
the
higher
sentiment,
income.
The sentiment will catch up with the reality. Under Joe Biden, the fact is that real purchasing power dropped by about $3,000. So far this year, it's up by about $1,200 per family. And the money that we're talking about is like real money. So for groceries, it went from $400 a month to $525 a month under Biden. So that's like an extra more than $1,000 a year you have to spend on groceries. It's down this year for us for the grocery package, but it's still got a lot of room to grow or to go.
A lot more to go. And the president reduced some tariffs on some of those grocery items with an eye towards that.
Yeah, if we don't make it here, then pretty much we don't tariff it.
Let me ask you, you mentioned gas. Oil prices globally are relatively low. We saw this Coast Guard interdiction with military forces boarding and seizing this vessel off the coast of Venezuela. Do you feel you have the leeway there, pricing-wise, to conduct more seizures or even a blockade of oil from Venezuela without it hurting?
Yeah, well, I'm not a foreign policy guy, so like what we do with Venezuela and whether we blockade is up to the president and Marco Rubio. But I could say
that you've got the leeway, right?
What's been going on is there's been kind of a black market for oil amongst sort of this sanctioned countries. And what we're doing is we're shutting that black market down. Whether that affects prices outside of the sanctioned countries is kind of an open question. Probably not.
You don't think it will?
No, because they're already kind of on the ropes, these countries. They're only getting oil when they get like sort of black fleets to sneak in and give them the oil. And that's what we're trying to slow down.
Okay. I want to ask you about the Fed decision. The Federal Open Market Committee said job gains have slowed this year. We also saw the survey from the Business Roundtable. I'm sure you saw it. They asked CEOs what they expect to happen, and they anticipate employment will decrease in 2026 rather than increase. Are you concerned about a hiring slowdown?
The same Fed said that they were more bullish on growth for next year, right? And so I think that we're at a
circumstance. But on the jobs picture.
But on the jobs picture, we're going to get the data next week. And so maybe next Sunday I'll come back and we'll talk about it because we've got 2 months of data coming out on Tuesday. And we'll get a clearer picture because right now we just have some very difficult to pin down surveys. Like the gold standard for this will be really the household survey, which we don't even get for October.
But these are CEOs. They're the people who would be doing the hiring, right? And they're saying, we're not doing it.
But they don't have the broad perspective that we'll get when we get the big data released next week.
And you trust that big data?
I trust the household survey especially. And sadly, we won't have one for October, but we're going to get one for November. And that's going to be really important for thinking about where the job market is.
Employment is one of the things that the Fed watches closely. And we heard again from the president that you were on this short list to be potentially the next Fed chair, although he was conducting interviews this week. He said you and Hoover's Kevin Warsh are at the top of the list. On Friday, the president was asked how big of a role he wants to personally play in future Fed interest rate decisions. Take a listen.
I think I certainly should have a role in talking to whoever the head of the Fed is, or the Fed. I don't think that, in the old days that used to happen. Nowadays it's sort of, they think it shouldn't happen. But I've done great. I've made a lot of money. I've been very successful. I think my voice should be heard.
As Fed chair, how frequently would you consult with the president when he says he wants his voice heard?
Well, I'm right now the top economic advisor for the president, and I talk about almost everything with him almost every day. I've certainly talked about monetary policy. I think he has very strong and well-founded views about what we ought to do. But in the end, the job of the Fed is to be independent and to work with the group of people that are on the Board of Governors at the FOMC to drive a group consensus on where interest rates should be, and to do so, basically with the guidance of the Fed chair. But in the end, it's a committee that votes. And I'd be happy to talk to the president every day, until both of us are dead, because it's so much fun to talk.
Even if you were Fed chair.
Even if I were Fed chair, or if I wasn't Fed chair, and I would hope that Kevin Warsh would be talking to the president as well if he were Fed chair.
And voice should be heard is going to be
every Fed chair talks to lots and lots of
the other
market
members
experts.
of the voting members, or
excuse me,
would the president's voice have equal weighting to the voting members?
No, he would have no weight. It's just his opinion matters if it's good, if it's based on data. And then if you go to the committee and you say, well, the president made this argument, and that's a really sound argument, I think. What do you think? If they reject it, then they'll vote in a different way.
Understood. Well, we'll be watching to see what happens. Kevin Hassett.
Great to be here.
Thanks as always. We'll be right back. We go now to Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy. He joins us this morning from Baton Rouge. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning, Margaret.
So your health care bill gives Americans up to $1,500 in tax-free accounts to spend on health care rather than extend these expiring ACA subsidies. On Thursday, your proposal failed 51-48, as did the Democratic proposal. So that means it looks like those receiving ACA premium subsidies will see their costs go up 114%. Bottom line here, did Republicans simply wait too long to come up with a health care alternative?
Well, first, Margaret, let's just kind of recast the question. We've got to do something for affordability for the people in the exchanges. And I will say that the only thing that Democrats would accept was something that would decrease the premiums. But if a family has a $6,000 out of pocket before they get into the strength of the insurance plan, then frankly, the policy is catastrophic. It brings profit to the insurance company, but not benefit to the patient. So I would argue that it actually is, there has to be a meeting of the minds between Democrats and Republicans. Let's acknowledge you've got to put cash in the patient's pocket to pay the out-of-pocket. I would be willing to do a short-term extension of the premium tax credits for those people with higher premiums if they will concede that we've got to do something for the $6,000 out-of-pocket. I think there's a deal to be had here. We need to push for that deal.
So you want to make sure that the average deductible is less than $6,000, is what I just heard you say there. And you're open to an
Absolutely. The net deductible, if you will. That $1,500 is per person. Give me a couple, for people over 50. Give me a couple in their 50s with two children, 18 and 19. They would get $5,000 in an account, in their purse, pocketbook, you name it, in their pocket to pay the out-of-pocket for the insurance. Now, the insurance plan for that couple would be $6,000 deductible. So you end up decreasing the net deductible by doing this. That makes the policy actually functional for them. If the child has a sprained ankle you bring to the urgent care, you can pay the bill, not kind of come forward out of your own pocket. By the way, I'm told that about 40% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account. That kind of puts into relief why you need to have something in their pocket to pay the out-of-pocket.
So I know the president has said that he likes the concept of your plan, but why didn't the White House put its shoulder behind this before Thursday? Why didn't they whip votes for you? 4 of your Republican colleagues crossed the aisle and voted with Democrats on their proposal.
All 4 of those voted for our proposal, too. And I think that shows you that there is interest in finding something which addresses both the critical problem of the out-of-pocket expense,
but is the White House
also
behind
the
you on
premiums.
this? Like, are they helping you?
Well,
if
it certainly seems like it.
You want this up for another vote?
Their initial plan had elements of what I am speaking about, helping people with that deductible. So simply put, yes, the White House is there. But if you notice, our problem was not on the Republican side. Our problem was on the Democratic side. So what I'm saying is let's just meet together. As a physician, I can tell you that deductible, the patient comes, she's stressed. She can't get the procedure, the x-ray, the whatever, because of her $6,000 deductible. Let's just meet. Let's address her concerns. And then this Republican would be willing to do something on a short-term extension of the premium tax credits if that's what it takes to get the deal, to help those folks with the more expensive premium, but also helping everybody with their deductible.
Do you need more White House help on this? And sir, you're running out of time here. Do you really think you can get this done before January 1st?
Our problem is not with Republicans. Our problem has been with Democrats. But of course, they may say that about us. So what I am kind of searching for is a deal in which both have their concerns addressed. If you do that and you put this in place, you really have until the end of like March to get it done. Because with these kind of accounts that people have money in, they just save the receipts, they submit them, and they get reimbursed. It happens, is what we do in my family. We have a flexible spending account.
Yeah.
And so we can get this done, and I think we can meet the concerns both about the out-of-pocket, but also about the premium.
I also want to ask you about what's happening with the FDA right now. CBS has confirmed that there are no ongoing safety studies into the abortion drug mifepristone. This was despite the Trump administration saying they were going to conduct one. And anti-abortion groups want this review to take place. I saw a letter the FDA commissioner sent to you last week claiming they are reviewing the evidence. Do you believe him? And if not, what are you doing about it?
I had a conversation with the commissioner this past week. It seems as if it's taken a long time to get that study up and going, which suggests to me that it's not a priority. For the pro-life community, this should be a priority. And if we're going to make America healthy again, this seems like, my gosh, should be top priority. So there is, I am disappointed, as well as others are disappointed by the way this is being slow-walked. I think it just needs to happen. We need to have the evidence out there. If you want to reassure American people about something which is really top of mind, this is where they should be going.
So the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists said that mifepristone is safe and effective and that there are side effects in less than 1% of patients. With that data point in place, why isn't the White House pressing the FDA commissioner to make this happen? There's some suggestion in reporting that it is for political concerns due to impact on the upcoming midterm races. Is this politically motivated, the slow walking you say is happening?
You're asking me to look into the kind of motivations of folks with whom I've not had a personal conversation.
Well, did the FDA commissioner say that?
But the FDA commissioner said that they're trying to get the study together, but they've been in office long enough that it could be. And so I think that it's right to be impatient. It's right to demand more. I don't know if the decision starts with the FDA commissioner. You just suggested it starts in the White House. That might be the case. Point being, get it done.
And you have confidence in the FDA commissioner?
I think the FDA commissioner is working very hard, and I think that in many cases he's receiving directives from on high. Okay. I don't know that for sure, but I suspect that's the case.
Okay. Dr. Cassidy, Senator Cassidy, we thank you for your time. We'll be back in a moment. Here's more of our exclusive interview with Venezuelan opposition leader María Corina Machado. The regime itself has done a number of things. They have revoked TV licenses for journalists to broadcast truthfully. He has jailed journalists. The United Nations says the National Guard targeted political opponents, committed sexual violence, tortured people, and committed other crimes against humanity. So from where you sit, is Maduro stepping down enough, or do you need the entire regime dismantled? In which case, that sounds like a country in collapse.
That's a very good question, because certainly Maduro is the head of the structure, but it's like any other mafia system. You have families or groups that operate and sometimes even compete among each other. There are different degrees in the crimes they have committed. Certainly those that have committed crimes against humanity that have been reported by the fact-finding missions of the United Nations should face justice. Local justice and international justice. There are other members of the regime or the armed forces that have committed lesser crimes. And certainly we will search for justice, not revenge. But this, I'm going to insist, what we're living right now is chaos. Maduro represents chaos. We're going to put order.
Understood, but respectfully, you also have acknowledged that the drug cartels are exploiting your country, that Russia is exploiting your country, Iran, Cuba, China. Just yesterday, Vladimir Putin spoke with Maduro and said their strategic partnership is growing. Are you concerned here that Russia is going to shore up support for the military and intelligence?
Well, I'm absolutely convinced that Putin wants the world to think that, especially wants President Trump to think that about that. But I would ask you a question. Do you think Putin has resources to spare at this time, or does he have something that's more urgent for him to invest those resources? I mean, helping a regime that it's going to fall apart anyway, regardless of what he does, I don't think it's a priority for him. Nonetheless, I do not underestimate what the residual actors of Chavismo might be planning to do once we are in a transition to democracy. And that will require very efficient actions to isolate and neutralize those threats. And, you know, we've worked very hard to understand what's the true nature of our armed forces right now, identifying those military, which we believe could be supportive of a transition to democracy. And have
they pledged that to you?
Government. Some of them, yes. And we believe that over 80% of our armed forces will join and support the democratic movement once the transition is in place.
So tell me about that transition. What kind of support do you need to keep the country together, to prevent another refugee crisis? And do you have that pledge from the American government now?
We will need a lot of support, advice, information, technology, not only from the United States, also from multilateral organizations, some of which we are already working together, not only in security issues, but power supply, food supply. How do we bring, put order in our financial accounts? How do we restructure our debt? How we open markets for international investment and give security to international investment in oil and gas, in infrastructure, critical minerals. I mean, Venezuela is unique in terms of the amount of the natural endowments we have. And, we're located at 3 hours by plane from Florida. So it's hard to think, in this shortening of the supply chains that is in the nearshoring process taking place, a better ally in the region than Venezuela. And at the same time, turning Venezuela from the criminal hub of the Americas into a security shield for the United States and for the rest of the region is a top priority for all. So, we have the plans ready. We have the teams ready. We know what we have to do the first 100 hours and the next 100 days. But most importantly, and I want to insist on this, we have the people.
Would that include U.S. peacekeeping troops or other troops on the ground?
I cannot answer that question right now. I don't think that's the case. There are other countries that have offered support as well in order to strengthen democratic institutions once the government-elect is in place. But that we will have to address that once we have the government-elect in place and putting order, bringing order back to our country. And one thing that you mentioned before about the refugee crisis, it's going to be exactly the contrary. The day Maduro goes, you will see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants coming back home from the United States and all over the world. I mean, our diaspora is desperate to go back to Venezuela. So even from that perspective, it is a win-win situation to have democracy in Venezuela.
Do you think it is safe for those Venezuelans in America to go back there now? Some temporary protected status was just revoked by the president for more than 500,000 Venezuelans here. Is it safe for them?
Absolutely not. It will be safe once Maduro is gone and every single citizen will be, live in freedom and respect towards the law. We will bring back rule of law. We will liberate our political prisoners, and everybody will be free to speak out what they feel, what they think, what they want for the future, for their own future and their families.
María Corina Machado, we thank you for your time today, and we'll be watching.
I thank you, Margaret, for this great opportunity, and God bless Venezuela. Venezuela will be free.
Our full conversation is available on our YouTube and podcast channels and CBSNews.com. We'll be right back. If you missed the CBS Town Hall with Erica Kirk, widow of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, last night, you can see the rebroadcast tonight at 8 p.m. on our CBS News 24/7 streaming network. That's it for us today. Thank you all for watching. Until next week. For Face the Nation, I'm Margaret Brennan.